And good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Zach Allison. I'm the National Accounts Manager for our market development team in Canada. I work with the ATS Spec Tool, and I've been hosting a number of these product sessions for all the various manufacturers that sponsor our specification tool on www.atsspec.com. We've been covering a wide range of topics, always trying to have good discussions on either application specific discussions, what codes are related to it, barrier-free design for Class A office washrooms was a topic we had recently, which is a great application discussion. Although sometimes as well, we need to get a little bit deeper into the details of a product for an application, which is why today we're really focusing on HPL surface solutions for labs and scientific spaces. We've got a great product line that we're going to be discussing. And we've got Joanne from our architectural account manager team out in Quebec, who's been working with this product for forever now. We've had this product for, I think, over a decade.
Not for the work surfaces.
Okay. Well,
for the facade, yes, for it's over 15 years, but for the surfaces, it's about 3 years.
Right. Thank you. So we're excited to see how this is going. A couple of pieces of housekeeping, just per usual. If you've been on our ATS universities before, you know that we do record them so that any of your team that maybe missed the session today, I'll show you how you can log in and view the previous session. Additionally, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and QA fields as we go. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them into there. And when we get a good break, I will bring them up to Joanne so we can get the expert's opinion. With all that being said, thank you very much for spending your time with us. I know it's always times of valuable commodity, especially in our industry. So taking an hour out of your day to learn more about the product is always appreciated. And we'll be showing that appreciation by sending out our certificates of attendance later on this week to all those that join in so that you can self-report for any of your certifications. With that, I'll pass the floor over to you, Joanne. Excited to see where we go next.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you all. Well, I don't see you, but nice to be talking to you. So we'll do the presentation about the compact HPL surface solution. Just to start, Spectrum Scientific Work Surface is the division that we're talking about. We are a manufacturer of solid phenolic that we work with. That will include for different solutions. That will include lab work surfaces, locker, interior wall lining, and facade system. We are located in Toronto, and our fabrication team use precision CNC machine to be able to do a high quality with the most demanding architectural specification. Our work are fabricated and technical problem. Our work surfaces are fabricated and stuck in Canada for reliability and fast turnaround. We partner with architects, designers, lab planner, and installer to supply solid phenolic work surfaces and epoxies. Our work surfaces solution are designed to work together with leading casework, manufacturer, and dealers to complement the next generation of lab and healthcare education project across Canada. Our material of choice is Trespa. We've been working with Trespa for over 15 years. The manufacturer is based in Netherlands, and they are the largest fabricator. We are the largest fabricator in Canada, but they are the largest phenolic persons. Thank you. The content of the presentation will go through different lab work surfaces, what to consider when choosing a lab solution, what is phenolic resin, manufacturing process, material properties, area of use and application, sustainability and testing, and a few pictures to get inspired. Let's start with the different laboratory work surfaces. Lab planner, we see more and more that they now prefer to work with modular table to be able to be more flexible, to excel in different concept and that. And fixed laboratory cases seems to be working with epoxy. This is what we have seen in the past, and they are still very common in lab. The most common used work surfaces are epoxy resin, phenolic resin, and stainless steel. There's some others, but those three will represent about 99% of the work surfaces in the different lab. What to consider when you're choosing a lab work surfaces? There's few things that are important to think about. The chemical resistant, depending on what you'll be using as chemical, the abrasive resistance, the heat resistant, impact, moisture resistant, bacteria, type of use, furniture style, and cost. So there's a lot to think about before just decided to go with one or another. I'll just do a small summary of epoxy resin. Epoxy resin is the most used in lab in North America. It's been used for over a few decades. And that was the standard in North America, even though phenolic is probably the most used worldwide. Epoxy resin is widely used in chemistry, biology, pathology, high school, and university lab. They're very hard. The surface is very hard and often relies upon structural support with a fixed casework. Typically specified in 1-inch thick all over. Very heavy. It's about 12 pounds per square foot. So basically, if you think about it, a 72 by 30-inch work surface, 1-inch thick, will weigh on 165 pounds. The lead time for these work surfaces is pretty long. It's mostly between 12 and 16 weeks and can be prone to scratching. Stainless steel lab countertop. Stainless steel is ideal for sterile environments, including biomedical, pharmaceutical, and food development. They're ideal for clean room, hygienic and antimicrobial, sorry, I'm French, antimicrobial properties. Offer a superior heat resistant, medium chemical resistant, high cost of installing can mitigate people by the supreme longevity of the surface provided and prone to scratch and dent with impact. So this is why we will be talking to you about compact HPL. In North America, it's known as a phenolic resin panel, most of the time, or compact HPL. There's different names, but it's basically the same. Unlike traditional laminate or plastic laminate or HDPL, depending on HPL is an homogeneous, monolithic, self-supporting panel that will not delaminate. Pretty important. Idea of what can be done. The panel consists of on the top, there will be an acrylic-based decorative work surface, surfaces. And then the core can be done with natural fiber or with craft paper. And this will be soaked in a phenolic resin. At the bottom, you'll get, again, an acrylic-based decorative surface or a backside because it needs to be balanced. The surface that we're using, that we will promote, is a surface that is cured, meaning that it's going to be harder before the pressing process, which is done with electron beam technology. Basically, it's a non-thermal curing method that would use high energy electron. And the result with that would be that it's going to be a very close work surface, non-porous, and with enhanced property. This is how it's being done. These are the kind of press where they will put the material. So as we've seen, there was a surface, there's the core, the backside of it, and all that will be pressed in a very heat press and very strong one. So it's going to become one, as we said, homogeneous surface. The nice thing about this EBC technology, it's something that will make it a very smooth machinability. You can cut it and do that on site very quick for installation. It has a very long life performance, high quality stability, and it's done also for the exterior and stuff like that. So it's UV resistant at the same time. Very low maintenance, easy to clean. Very high chemical resistance, has a very high impact and scratch resistance. Not saying that you cannot damage it, but has a very good resistance for it. Does not support bacterial growth, and it is also suitable for contact with food. Am I going too fast?
No, you're doing great.
Yeah. So design, we'll go to design flexibility and durability. It comes with multiple color, has a variety of texture because we're talking about HPL, and it's the same thing even for, we'll see, wall lining or even for facade. Single or double side color possibility. Multiple panel size allow efficient use of the panel. Different panel thickness, lightweight in comparison to a lot of other material, and possible to machine with common tool. We see here that we have 8 different colors, plus one with a texture, with Trespa. Black, white, and gray are the most specified color. Whatever the color is, the price is the same, there's no upcharge. And we will also recommend to go with 3/4 inch instead of 19 inches. It's as strong and it's lighter. We see now the trends in the lab sector. It's mostly to get environment that will inspire and stimulate the environment. People can work a lot better in here. We want to do something that's going to be aesthetically pleasing, getting a little bit away from all the dark environment. They're also looking for more flexible and efficient work surfaces, easy to implementation of new technology. Since everything is moving fast, going with modular and moving furniture, it's also a big advantage when they need to reconnect the furniture according to new needs. And the same room can become a multifunctional environment for interchangeable projects. So these are pretty much the trend that we see in the industry now. Sustainability and testing.
So just a quick question before a couple of comments coming in from chat before we circle up. A couple of them just on certificates of attendance. So we'll be sending out certificate of attendance. You don't need to log in to do so. We typically have that out on Friday. If you haven't received them in the past for previous sessions, please do feel free to email me directly. We'll review the list and make sure that our team's getting that sent out properly to you and that we're not getting caught in any spam filters. Did as well a question on the product coming back to the weight difference. Because you had mentioned specifically, I think it was the epoxy is very heavy versus the top lab being more lightweight. Is there, like I said, a 10x? Is there any sort of numerical?
If we think about, we will revise it, but I can say it. If we think about a 72 by 30 inch by 1 inch in resin, we were talking about 165 pounds. If we go with, because it's about 7.5 pounds instead of 12 pounds per square foot, sorry, per 1 inch take. And we can even, if we go with the, so it's lighter. And if we go with the 3/4 inch, we're about 6 pounds per inch, per square foot. So it's even a lot less. Pretty easier to, it's a good advantage when people need to move them around, change them. Doesn't have to be that heavy. And it also brings a possibility to get heavier weight on top of the work surface in the base. It is solid enough to hold about the same weight, but you can put more because the surface itself doesn't weigh much on the support underneath.
That's wild. And I know one thing that's true across all product categories is weight matters. The weight really affects installation time. no matter what the product type is, it makes it much easier to handle with the lighter weight material. Is that why I know we tend to recommend more 3/4 versus 1 inch, but 1 inch is a little bit more industry standard, right?
The 1 inch is the industry standard in US or in North America, I should say. In Europe, it's not even the 19 or 3/4 inch, it's 1/2 inch.
Oh, wow.
It's a huge difference. And one of the reasons that I was told, I don't have all the secret, but I was told that one of the reasons that the 1 inch was done with epoxy, epoxy is a bit more fragile in the transport because it's all molded and together, and it's more fragile. So they prefer to go with the 1 inch. And if we think about whatever we do in North America, if we think about a tabletop, if we think about a counter in a kitchen or everywhere else, we used to go a lot thicker than everywhere else in the world. In Europe, again, all the work surfaces for a kitchen, for a tabletop, for furniture, it's about 13 millimeter, which is 1/2 inch. So I think it's mostly, we started with that in North America with the 1 inch because it was stronger with epoxy, but so heavy, and maybe we will get to something a bit thinner, and it's less cost, less weight, and I don't see an advantage with the 1 inch, or to be a standard.
That's great.
It can change.
Perfect. On to sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability. The product we're using are available with PEFC, or FSC, that's for the forest certification. They also contribute to the BREEAM and or LEED. We can go up to 4 points with that. We have the gold certificate with the product, and Trespa has a very nice environmental product declaration, the EPD they call, and that is done by a third party. So it's pretty much what is required more and more for the or LEED or quality or sustainability in the architecture now. Chemical resistant, we go through the CIFA test protocol. This is a test that's going to be done by, again, with a third party. It's not Trespa, or it's not the manufacturer who does that test. It's a third party who will say that the product will be a lab grade furniture. CIFA has developed some tests to look with, they work with, I think it's 29 or 39 different chemical, and we have the result, we have the test result if someone wants them. They're working with a CIFA 3. CIFA 3 is usually limited to the horizontal work surface. And what they do, they will put chemical on it and leave it there for 24 hours. And after that, they're going to see if there's an effect on the work surface. And they're allowed to pass the CIFA 3. They're allowed to have three products that will show a difference, or what they will call a category C. Only 3 to be able to pass out of all the tests they will do. And CIFA 8 is usually limited for casework, shelving, or usually something where mostly vertical, and the test will be done for 1 hour, because if it goes by, usually it's going to go through. These are the CIFA, and they say CIFA spell say. It's very nice to tell you all that, to say that our product is so much better. We have all the paper to prove it, but for me, I think that the best way to do it, and we're open to do that with you if you want to test it. If I can tell you that it's good with this chemical, and there might be some chemical that haven't been tested, what we suggest is we'll send you a big sample of the product, of the phenolic, and you can do some tests like it was done here. These were some pictures that were taken by people who did the test. See where the difference, you can see over here that there's a slight difference. Over here, that's a discoloration. Same thing over those two. But out of that, if you know what you're working with, and the best way would be to test with your own product what you'll be. And I'm not there to tell you we're better. You can find it yourself. Basically, that's what it is. But I think it's the best way to convince yourself if it works for you, and you may be using a product that doesn't work well, but at least you'll know it in advance.
Is this something that you worked with the owner group on? Like, are you okay with providing samples?
Yes. Yeah, it's something that we offer architect to make sure that whatever they choose is going to be tested, and we offer that to the end user because they have their own chemical that they use. And as I said, there may be a chemical that they're using that it hasn't been tested, but the best way to find out if it works or not is for them to test it. And I think it's make everybody comfortable in to use it, because you know that it works. You test it. It's not just on paper saying that we are so good or so nice or whatever.
And just as a quick point of comment, circling back to the lead conversation, one thing I know that came up on a recent project that we were working on was what lead points it actually contributes to. We can of course get the list over to you to any of the architects as part of the follow-up, but I think it's up to 4 points. It's all the materials points. So it's, as we all know with lead, after spending years starting to understand it, one product doesn't necessarily just give you a lead point, it contributes towards the overall lead point. So this will contribute towards, I think, 4 different lead points. And if you are interested in lead and water sense discussions, we recently had a ATS webinar focused on ultra low flow technologies. And at the end of the presentation here, I'll show you again where you can find all of our previously recorded ATS webinars. And of course, we'll be happy to set up any discussions, particularly for your firm. If you want this or any of our other webinars specifically for your firm, we'll be happy to send Joanne in again.
Thank you. So the thing to consider, well, the consideration when selecting phenolic, epoxy, or epoxy, I made a little chart just to go through it very quickly. So as we see, the weight is 77.5 pounds per square foot for 1 inch in phenolic, compared to 12 pounds for the epoxy. The phenolic use recycled wood fiber or wood paper. Epoxy use sand, and known
Carcinogen.
I cannot say it in French. It's carcinogène.
I know. I remember in the practice.
Oh yeah, I don't know. There's some words like that for some reason
hey, unique makes us special.
Yes, but it is something. The bonding agent with resin and all that can be pretty hard, and it's something that cannot be cut inside the building or something. So it's also something to consider, because if they want to use the surface and change it because it's a modular thing, they want to do something else or something is damaged, it's so easy to do with the resin one, the phenolic. Sorry. There's a lot of certificates that are available for the HPL or phenolic resin, which do not really exist with epoxy. All the colors are the same with epoxy compared to usually about 15% with epoxy. It's fabricated with standard tooling, and the dust that comes out, it can be done on site, and the dust that comes out is not toxic. The epoxy need to be fabricated with a diamond tip tooling, and it creates really toxic dust. So it cannot be done into the lab. It needs to be done outside. As I was saying, we have stock material. So there's a black, 2 shades of gray, and 1 white that we're keeping in stock. So it can be delivered pretty rapidly. Compared to the epoxy, they say it goes from 4 to 16 weeks, but it looks like that it's mostly between 12 and 16. If you're lucky, it might be quicker than that. It can be finished on both sides, which making ideal if you do a shelving, or even depending on how you want to install it, sometimes you can even reverse it. On epoxy, it's finished only on the top. that will not oxidize. So it's going to keep its original appearance throughout the lifespan, and it will oxidize with the epoxy. It's a completely closed, non-porous surface that we were saying about the EBC technology that is applied on it. So whenever you whatever you spill on it, it won't be a problem compared to the epoxy, which become it's porous basically.
And I know there's a lot of detail on these as well, so maybe a good time to pause as well after this slide and just see if any questions come in.
Okay. The phenolic can be as thick as 1/4 inch, maybe not for a work surface, but for a different application, which is something that would be very hard to do with epoxy because it's molded and it would be too fragile and it might crack. We often hear also that the epoxy is very more resistant for the dry heat, which is true. They go up to 380 degrees. The phenolic will go up to 320 degrees, which is less. But at the same time, if we think of about in the lab, which we don't see much more, too much anymore, but the little thing with the flame in it and all that, these burner, the heat of these burner is probably around 1200 degrees. So it's so much higher than 320 or 380. So both of them will be damaged if it goes through it. Both products have a 10-year warranty. They say it's much more chemical resistant for so many chemical compared to epoxy resin based on the CIFOC testing, but I don't want to say which one are better and which one are good. I think you should check with CIFOC chemical testing for epoxy. They should have the list. So do you have a question on that?
Yeah, I think maybe pop back to the last slide and we'll just see if any questions come in, because I know there's a lot of detail here. I think one of the, I'll interpose my thoughts here for a second as well as we wait and see if there's any questions. One thing that highlights to me is the fabrication that's available with it. You know, there's so many different things that you can do with the product that it's not just the counter. Like you said, the shelving, being able to fabricate it on site with standard materials and not a special diamond tip tool. Toxic dust is a concern, as I'm sure everyone can figure out. But the porosity of it is also very interesting. You know, for anything like a hospital, that's always a paramount thought. So I'm interested to see if there is any questions coming up, but nothing at this point. So maybe you did such a great job explaining it that it's straightforward.
Good. Just want to show some application. It can be used for vertical and horizontal application. So obviously there's we can do some cabinet. Not that we are into that business yet, but it can be done. And vertical can be done also for, horizontal for shelving. We see here some example. We can do different shape easily that can almost be done on site. Can do something different. If we want to, architect wants to do something sort of a little bit different and more inspiring. Other application, we can use the same material to do clean room lockers. So it's pretty interesting for that. We can also use them for wall lining. These are applications that was done into a hospital. So it is interesting because it has the same chemical resistant, impact resistant. We can clean it, we can bang on it, impact UV. Also, this is a children's hospital. This is an airport. It's not exactly the same area, but give you an idea of what can be done. This also was into a children's hospital. So you can do some layout with the different colors and different shape. This was done This is into a scientific lab in Quebec. It's Laval University. This is in the science pavilion. So what they wanted to do, they did it as a vertical on the wall. And we engrave it to show 4 different researchers' face for each floor. Pretty interesting. Give a place for ideas, creativity. Again, different things that can be done. Don't want to go too much in it, but just to give you an idea of what can be done with the product. It's also very good for corridor or elevator inside. It's good for wherever you have eye traffic. Lockers can be done with different color. It can be interesting for that as well. And few pictures just for you to get inspired of what can be done for different labs that were done all in white or white and different colors for we see a lot more white top, pretty inspiring, more bright. It seems to be something that people are looking for, and they want to be close to the window if it's possible and get a lot of lighting. Again, we see it with light. I think this one, it looks white, but it's a light gray, and you see different colors for the casework. All white, and you have different things on it. And work with black counter, color casework. Things that we've seen more on a more regular way. With a wood finish. It's not real wood, it's a wood color or wood decor with light top. And this completed presentation. Is there any question? I'm here for that.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for any questions, but I'll also highlight, I do, again, love the variety of colors. I think one thing that stood out to me on one of the sessions we did, I think a year or 2 ago, for healthcare design and hospital design, was the fact that, specifically for children's hospitals, but all hospitals in general, getting away from the standard, more institutional look and into colors and keeping things kind of more playful and getting it away from institutional had a correlative response with recovery. And especially in children's hospital, they really look for something that makes it a more positive environment, because it does provably show that they recover quicker and more commonly in those environments. It's a pretty interesting thing that how much your environment plays into your health. So I love that aspect. So great question here. So we provided a lot of detail on the product between phenolic and epoxy, but it comes down to how much do the two compare in cost?
The cost is, I would say, it's pretty much close to the same 1 inch for 1 inch. If you just think of the buying cost. Or whenever you want to change something, whenever installation is going to be cheaper, it's lighter. Ask installer if they prefer to install epoxy or phenolic. It's so much lighter for them to work around, so it's easier. It's long lasting as well. You have different colors. I think there's so many advantages that we see it more and more, and especially if you want to go modular, if you want to reuse them, change them, and that's the big advantage. It can be machined at different sizes, and it can be done afterward. That's what I would say for now.
Perfect. I did see a couple of raise some hands, so we're not going to be able to unmute anyone due to the fact that it is a large room. So if you have any questions, feel free to put into the question and answer tab, and I'll be sure to bring that up. In the meantime, while we keep an eye on those, you want to stop sharing for a second and I'll take over and show
Yeah,
how
the
you
last thing I want to say is we have a three-party, my God, I'm looking at my words now.
three-part spec.
Three-part spec, thank you very much. That will be more than pleased to provide. And if you need more information in that, I'm available. Just this last slide, you have my information and you'll get it anyway. So yes, now it's up to you, Zach.
Yeah, we'll be sure to share the link to that that three-part spec so you can find all the information you need as part of our follow-up for the presentation as well. You'll have Joanne's contact info there. For now, though, I'm going to show you how you can find some of the products that we talked about today. First and foremost, in case you are unfamiliar and this is your first time, we have a product selection tool called ATS Spec. This allows you to, free of charge, sponsored by our manufacturers, put together product selections and complete projects, and all free of charge, paid for by the partners that sponsor us. As well, we've been launching a part of our site called templates. We don't have the lab equipment one done yet, but you can see a few of the ones that we've launched so far, where this will give you the recommended products based on application, and then you can download a catalog or start a live project and copy it directly into your new project. Or if you are, let's say you have a number of schools that you're coming up with, it's that time of year we're all pumping out the rush school board projects. If you want an up-to-date version of products available in the market because the school board spec is a decade and a half old, then you can download this or start a live project with it. All of our standards are kept up to date with the manufacturers. So any product that's got a discontinuation or a model number change is updated. I mentioned a few times that we do have a variety of previous sessions available for you to review. If you would like more information on any of those, you can go to our Architects and Engineers tab into the Learning Hub, and you'll find the ATS webinars link here, where you can check out different products for commercial bathroom design, the new templates and how to use them, ADA compliant restroom, stainless steel drainage. We've been doing a topic a week most weeks, so lots of great information there. And all of this is before you even log in. Once you do want to start building a project, you'll want to hit the login button. And again, this is all free and paid for by your manufacturers. They'll save your password once you're in the first time, and then you're into your dashboard and creating your projects. I'm in today as our demo eng. Log in as our demo account here. Log me in as a demo account. Must have logged me out. Good security. It's pumping me out because I sat idle for too long. Anyway, so once we are in here, I got to minimize this camera. It's killing me. We have our projects, masters, templates, and quick specs, like I mentioned. You can also reach out to our spec team and get any help along the way. Request a build, and it'll ensure that you are, our team's going to select the product for you. I've also got the masters open here so you can take a look. The difference is our ATS templates is kind of call it our ATS masters, whereas the individual masters and projects tab would be your particular firm's masters. So what you can do is use our ATS templates to create your own version of a regular used fixture selection. So if you're doing a lot of labs, you could take that to create your labs master. If you're doing a lot of schools, like I mentioned, you could use our educational master to get you started on your labs master. And then you can copy this just by hitting the Action and Copy To button into whatever project you have. So here you can see I've got a Labs and Scientific Spaces project that I started earlier. I'm always assuming that I'm going to be running a little bit behind, so I always prep a little bit ahead. You can see once we are into our project, we've got multiple tabs here. We can add additional tabs, and we can add product to this just by hitting the plus button. So here, we've got our pins for all the various product categories that we have on the site. You can see we've got a ton of different products that are available. Now, of course, how do you sort through that and find the product that you were looking for? You can do that either by searching by specific model name and number, or if you know the category you're looking for, we can say we're looking for a locker for our clean room. And we can also pin this. So if this is a product that you're going to be selecting regularly, you can pin it, and it'll show up here as our pinned regularly used fixtures. So I can deselect these. I'm going to care about my locker and my pumps. Some of the other things, I could pin faucets, or in labs, you're going to need emergency equipment. Maybe you need a specially accessed door because this is, again, a clean room. We want it airtight, watertight. We can pin those. They're going to show up at the top, and then we can click into our favorite category and get into product selection. You can see we've got everything from the Spectrum line, our athletic locker series. So if you're doing like a pro sports locker room, big stadium locker room, then of course we've got our classics, the Hygiene Plus, the safe screens, and the product that we're talking about today are clean room lockers. And then from here, one of the things that happens with ATS Spec that's a little bit different than some of the online product selection tools you may be used to, or maybe you've seen in the market before, or different than a manufacturer's spec sheet even, is the fact that you are going to configure it. You're going to select the product that's going into your environment. You can select most popular if you just want to use kind of the default selections that we have available, or you can go through our selection step and choose, 2, 3 tier, the color, the height. If you want to follow our standard dimensions or customize it, so then you can toggle these. And if any option that you select prevents another option from being selected, then our rule engine will prevent that selection. So we'll go back to height as per drawing, and we could add any sort of additional options here, change our hinges, customize our various features, go for a slope top if we wanted. And that's going to update our model number and update our information. So we get the configured model number. Now, next to this, you'll see we do have the manufacturer spec sheet as well. So it's not like you're just getting configured selection. You can also get that manufacturer spec sheet just by a click of a button. So I'll add this in again so you can see the full process. And then it's going to pull up a page that lets me either configure the rest of the selection if there's another product that's part of the selection. This would be true, say, if you're doing a sink, you need a faucet, you need your traps and supplies. If you're doing a toilet, you need your flush valve, your seat, your carrier. If you're doing a locker, you need your lock. And you can get the higher end options that we have here, the RFID chips if this is a high-end lab, or your basic HASS block. And again, if there's an option to configure, it'll show in there. If not, then it doesn't, and we'll just add that to product to the selection. And then you could either hit complete if you're done with the selection. So say you didn't want the lock, you could have just gone straight to hitting complete and specify your lock elsewhere. If you want to add an additional fixture selection, you hit add new drawing. It's going to take you back. You can see our pins stayed the same, so they're here. So if you need, anything here, we're talking more architectural product in this stage. But if we wanted to look at emergency equipment and we want maybe high-end recessed emergency equipment, again, we're saving space. We're concerned about aesthetics in our lab. We're concerned about, bacterial growth. So you can filter in here as well. If we want to search by recessed mounting, then you could filter down to just the products that fit that type. And you can see these swing down with drain pan, with a daylight drain, recessed shower heads, various configurations. We can take this filter off and filter by manufacturer. So I know one of the common changes to emergency equipment in the last year or so has been the request for faucets integrated with emergency equipment. So here you have a two handle with an eye wash or a sensor operated with an eye wash. These are newer products that also have a option for a mixing valve built in. So great products that you can learn more about, again, by hitting spec sheet and downloading the spec sheet, or just expanding it, review the options, and move on from there. I'm going to jump back to the project to show you again how you can fill out your product another way. I'm going to go to this Labs product master that I built earlier. So like I mentioned, if we help you get set up with a master and you have a number of these projects coming out, now we don't need to select that particular emergency. We can go through and select all of these various sinks, you know, our deep bowls, chemical resistant sink with the you know, serrated nozzle faucet, different faucet options, different emergency options. And we can say, well, I know I don't want that one and I don't want that one, so I'm going to just copy this. Of course, I need my acid neutralizer, backflow, all the various product that you may need. This may not all be in your scope, but you can select what you do need and leave the engineer to select what they are selecting as well. And in fact, you're even able to share the project with your engineer on the system if you so choose. Really, it's up to you. I'm going to search for that project file that we created earlier. We're going to see our labs and scientific spaces. I'm going to hit the additional equipment that I set up earlier, and I can copy it into it. I could copy this into a new project. I could copy this into a new master, all sorts of integrations that you can use. And then once you're done, you know, let's say we want to now download this, but we want to include our locker. I can even copy this over to that same file. So I can put my locker directly into this lab's additional equipment. And then I can download everything. I hit download, and now you can download the configured selection. So not just the base manufacturer spec sheet, although again, of course, we include that as well. You can get the manufacturer spec sheet package right here. You get a configured written spec or fixture schedule or in Excel or submittal or product brochure or Revit or the 3-part specs. Lots of different formats that you can download just by hitting generate documents. I see a couple questions coming in, and I'm also seeing I'm starting to run a little bit long on time. So again, I mentioned I download all this earlier just to make sure that I'm keeping on pace. So I'll pop over first to our spec sheet package. I mentioned a few times the manufacturer spec sheet. Now, of course, you can get that. You can get a table of contents with all the products you've selected, all different spec details. You can get the configured product selection like we talked about. There's our locker with a configured clean room information on it. You can get the written spec in various formats. And of course, everything's open and editable. So let's say you're choosing a different sink. You could, of course, delete this if needed. If you want to copy everything over into your internal written specs, you can do so there as well. And of course, finally, I mentioned the schedules in Excel. You can see here at the bottom, we have a plumbing schedule. We have our drain schedule. I move this. We've got the backflow schedule and our locker schedule. So you've got different schedules. It's not just one, and the tabs at the top are all configured to the type of schedule you're using. So that's everything in terms of the ATS spec side. Of course, we talked about a bunch of different products today, but I think there's a lot of details shared. Is there any final questions coming in as I was going through?
Zach, I just had a question. There were a number of questions that came up in the Q&A session. Do all participants see those questions and see those answers, or are those answers only directed back to the participant who asked the question? For example, there's a question about our Buy America products. Can you select for Buy America products in the spec tool? And there was a couple other questions on price. I just don't know if the answers go to the broad group or they just go to the person who asked the question.
I think it'd be great to reiterate any of the questions. So any of those that you think is great to share with the crowd, I think you should share those.
Okay, there was a question about, you compared the benefits, the relative pros and cons of epoxy versus phenolic. Can you help us understand a cost difference between the two? And so in our experience, we normally recommend a 3/4 inch compact phenolic top. That should come in installed about 15 to 20% lower than epoxy. We always hesitate to give a number because really the price that the GC and the ownership is going to pay will depend on local labor rates. So if you've got a local budget that you use for epoxy, 15 to 20% lower than that should be a safe number. And then there was another question about, is there a download available for the spec tool? So Zach, I think you showed the tool that we have available for the clean room lockers and a lot of the other lab equipment. Work surfaces
I would say
are not on there.
So the online spec tool is not like, you don't download it. It's a browser software, so you don't need to download an app or anything like that. However, the products, once you configure them and add them into your project or quick spec or master, are all available to be downloaded in those variety of formats that I mentioned. Now, I did as well see a follow-up question on that, on whether or not we have Buy America for product selection. And I do believe we have a filter. If not, that's likely a filter that we'll be adding in the near future. It's an iterative live tool. So feedback like that, if that's going to help you and a number of your other engineers and architects in your firm, then we'll be happy to look at adding that tool. So I know the filters is actually something that we've been working on over the last little bit as we're going through our phases and iterations. We just recently added a bariatric filter and a child height filter. So those are changes that we can make, and absolutely, if that's something that's going to help users, then we'll be looking to add that. Now, in terms of the specific clean room lockers and top labs that you mentioned, I believe there are downloads available there on the particular Spectrum scientific website as well, right?
Yes, and we'll be working over the next couple of months to make work surfaces a category that's available in the spec tool itself.
Perfect.
And Joanne, in the
we went a lot of directions because I wasn't quite sure what we were trying to download there, but hopefully we get clear answers for all of it. Any other final questions as we wrap up here? In the meantime, as we wait to see, I just want to say again a quick thank you to all those that spent the time with us today. Thank you, Joanne. That was fantastic. I learned a lot, which I'm always assuming that if I'm learning, I hope that everyone else is learning as well. Maybe everyone's a lot smarter than me, but hey, who knows? As I mentioned, this is going to be recorded, and I showed you how you can find it on the ATS webinar section. And of course, we'll be having our template for the lab areas coming live soon. In the meantime, my team is going to be sending out our certificates of attendance on Friday. And I know at least one person mentioned they hadn't received their previous one. It's likely just caught up in a filter of some sort of spam or junk. So please email me directly, zach@atspec.com. I'll have our team to review and make sure that we get that information out to you. In the meantime, thank you again for joining us. I don't see any other questions coming in, so it looks like we're giving you 5 minutes back. Thank you again, and we're excited for the next session.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Joanne.